Hello, and welcome to The Crucible by Arthur Miller, Act I. An overture. A small upper bedroom in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris, Salem, Massachusetts, in the spring of the year 1692. There is a narrow window at the left. Through its leaded panes, the morning sunlight streams. A candle still burns near the bed, which is at the right. A chest, a chair, and a small table are the other furnishings. At the back, a door opens on the landing of the stairway to the ground floor. The room gives off an air of clean spareness. The roof rafters are exposed, and the wood colors are raw and unmellowed. As the curtain rises, Reverend Parris is discovered kneeling beside the bed, evidently in prayer. His daughter, Betty Parris, aged 10, is lying on the bed, inert. Inert means not moving, non-responsive. Now there's like this big long intro. I'm going to skip a lot of it, so follow along in the book with me, and I'll tell you where I'm skipping and where I'm skipping to. At the time of these events, Paris was in his middle 40s. In history, he cut a villainous path, and there is very little good to be said for him. He believed he was being persecuted wherever he went, despite his best efforts to win people and God to his side. In meeting, that means like in church, he felt insulted if someone rose to shut the door without first asking his permission. He was a widower, so his wife is dead, with no interest in children or talent with them. He regarded them as young adults, and until this strange crisis, he, like the rest of Salem, never conceived that the children were anything but thankful for being permitted to walk straight, eyes slightly lowered, arms at their sides, and mouths shut until bidden to speak. His house stood in the town, but today we would scarcely even call it a village. The meeting house was nearby, and from this point outward, toward the bay or inland, there were a few small-windowed, dark houses snuggling against the raw Massachusetts winter. Salem had been established hardly 40 years before. To the European world, the whole province was a barbaric frontier inhabited by a sect of fanatics who, nevertheless, were shipping out products of slowly increasing quantity and value. No one can really know what their lives were like. They had no novelists and would not have permitted anyone to read a novel if one were handy. Their creed forbade anything resembling a theater or vain enjoyment. They did not celebrate Christmas, and a holiday from work meant only they must concentrate even more upon prayer. Which is not to say that nothing broke into this strict and somber way of life. When a new farmhouse was built, friends assembled to, quote, raise the roof, and there would be special foods cooked and probably some potent, meaning alcoholic, cider passed around. There was a good supply of ne'er-do-wells in Salem. A ne'er-do-well is like someone who doesn't do much, they kind of screw around all day, who dallied at the shovelboard, that's like a pub game, in Bridget Bishop's Tavern. Probably more than the creed, that's their beliefs, their religious beliefs. Hard work kept the morals of the place from spoiling, for the people were forced to fight the land like heroes for every grain of corn, and no man had very much time for fooling around. And there's your answer to number 2. So we'll stop at number 2, and then I'm going to skip quite a bit here. So when you skip the next paragraph entirely and start where it says the edge of the wilderness. The edge of the wilderness was close by. The American continent stretched endlessly west, and it was full of mystery for them. It stood dark and threatening over their shoulders night and day, for out of it Indian tribes had marauded from time to time, and Reverend Parris had parishioners who had lost relatives to these heathen. The parochial snobbery of these people was partly responsible for their failure to convert the Indians. Probably they also preferred to take land from heathens rather than from fellow Christians. At any rate, very few Indians were converted, and the Salem folk believed that the virgin forest was the devil's last preserve, his home base, and the citadel of his final stand. To the best of their knowledge, the American forest was the last place on earth that was not paying homage to God. For these reasons, among others, they carried about an air of innate resistance, even of persecution. Their fathers had, of course, been persecuted in England. So now they and their church found it necessary to deny any other sect its freedom, lest their New Jerusalem be defiled and corrupted by wrong ways and deceitful ideas. So now you should be at the top of page 1236. They believed, in short, that they held in their steady hands the candle that would light the world. We have inherited this belief, and it has helped and hurt us. It helped them with the discipline it gave them. They were a dedicated folk by and large, and they had to be to survive the life they had chosen or been born into in this country. It's really extension number 2 right there. Again, I'm going to skip the next 2 paragraphs on page 1236 and go to the last paragraph on page 1236, which starts the Salem tragedy. The Salem tragedy, which is about to begin in these pages, developed from a paradox. It is a paradox in whose grip we still live, and there is no prospect yet that we will discover its resolution. Simply, it was this. For good purposes, even high purposes, the people of Salem developed a theocracy, which is a combine of state and religious power, whose function was to keep the community together and to prevent any kind of disunity that might open it up to destruction by material or ideological enemies. It was forged for a necessary purpose and accomplished that purpose. But all organization is and must be grounded on the idea of exclusion and prohibitions of things you're not allowed to do, just as 2 objects cannot occupy the same space. Evidently, the time came in New England, now at the top of page 1237, when the repressions of order were heavier than seemed warranted by the dangers against which the order was organized. In other words, after things settled down, they established a colony, all the rules started to feel a little bit repressive and oppressive. The witch hunt was a perverse manifestation of the panic which set in among all classes when the balance began to turn toward greater individual freedom. When one rises above the individual villainy displayed, one can only pity them all, just as we shall all be pitied someday. It is still impossible for man to organize his social life without repressions, and the balance has yet to be struck between order and freedom. The witch hunt was not, however, a mere repression. It was also, and as importantly, a long overdue opportunity for everyone so inclined to express publicly his guilt and sins under the cover of accusations against the victims. It suddenly became possible, and patriotic and holy, for a man to say that Martha Corey had come into his bedroom at night, and that while his wife was sleeping at his side, Martha laid herself down on his chest and, quote, nearly suffocated him. Of course, it was her spirit only, but his satisfaction at confessing himself was no lighter than if it had been Martha herself. One could not ordinarily speak such things in public. Long-held hatreds of neighbors could now be openly expressed and vengeance taken, despite the Bible's charitable injunctions. Landlust, which had been expressed before by constant bickering over boundaries and deeds, could now be elevated to the arena of morality. One could cry, "Witch!" against one's neighbor and feel perfectly justified in the bargain. Old scores could be settled on a plane of heavenly combat between Lucifer and the Lord. Suspicions and the envy of the miserable toward the happy could and did burst out in the general revenge. So there's your answer to number 3 on the study guide. And right now you should be in the middle of page 1237. Reverend Paris is praying now, and though we cannot hear his words, a sense of his confusion hangs about him. He mumbles, then seems about to weep, and then he weeps, and then prays again, but his daughter does not stir on the bed. The door opens, and his Negro slave enters. Tituba is in her 40s. Paris brought her with him from Barbados, where he spent some years as a merchant before entering the ministry. She enters as one does who can no longer bear to be barred from the sight of her beloved. But she is also very frightened because her slave sense has warned her that, as always, trouble in this house eventually lands on her back. "My Betty be hearty soon?" "Out of here!" "My Betty not going die?" "Out of my sight! Out of my..." "Oh my God. God help me." "Betty, child, dear child, will you wake? Will you open your eyes? Betty, little one." He's bending to kneel again when his niece, Abigail Williams, 17, enters. She's a strikingly beautiful girl, an orphan with an endless capacity for dissembling. That means she lies all the time. Now she is all worry and apprehension and propriety. I'm at the top of 1238 now. "Uncle? Susanna Walcott's here from Dr. Griggs." "Oh, let her come. Let her come." "Come in, Susanna." Susanna Walcott, a little younger than Abigail, a nervous, hurried girl, enters. "What does the doctor say, child?" He bid me come and tell you, Reverend Sir, that he cannot discover no medicine for it in his books." "Then he must search on." "Aye, sir. He had been searching his books since he left you, sir,
But he bid me tell you that you might look to unnatural things for the cause of it.
No, no. There be no unnatural cause here. Tell him I have sent for Reverend Hale of Beverly, and Mr. Hale will surely confirm that. Let him look to medicine, and put out all thought of unnatural causes here. There be none.
Aye, sir. He bid me tell you.
Speak nothing of it in the village, Susanna. Go directly home, and speak nothing of unnatural causes.
Aye, sir. I pray for her. Uncle, the rumor of witchcraft is all about. I think you'd best go down and deny it yourself. The parlor's packed with people, sir. I'll sit with her.
And what shall I say to them? That my daughter and my niece I discovered dancing like heathen in the forest?
Uncle, we did dance. Let you tell them I confessed it, and I'll be whipped if I must be. But they're speaking of witchcraft. Betty's not witched.
Abigail, I cannot go before the congregation when I know you have not opened with me. What did you do with her in the forest?
We did dance, Uncle, and when you leaped out of the bush so suddenly, Betty was frightened, and then she fainted. And there's the whole of it.
Child, sit you down.
I would never hurt Betty. I love her dearly.
Now look you, child, your punishment will come in its time. But if you trafficked with spirits in the forest, I must know it now. For surely my enemies will, and they will ruin me with it.
But we never conjured spirits.
Then why can she not move herself since midnight? This child is desperate. It must come out, Abigail. My enemies will bring it out. Let me know what you've done there. Abigail, do you understand that I have many enemies?
I have heard it, Uncle.
There is a faction that is sworn to drive me from my pulpit. Do you understand that?
I think so, sir.
Now then, in the midst of such disruption, my own household is discovered to be the very center of some obscene practice. Abominations are done in the forest.
It were sport, Uncle.
You call this sport? Abigail, if you know something that may help the doctor, for God's sake, tell it to me. I saw Tituba waving her arms over the fire when I came upon you. Why was she doing that? And I heard a screeching and gibberish coming from her mouth. She was swaying like a dumb beast over that fire.
She always sings her Barbados songs, and we dance.
I cannot blink what I saw, Abigail. It means I can't not see what I saw, Abigail. For my enemies will not blink it. I saw a dress lying in the grass.
A dress?
Aye, a dress. And I thought I saw someone naked running through the trees.
No one was naked. You mistake yourself, Uncle.
I saw it! Now tell me true, Abigail, and I pray you feel the weight of truth upon you, for now my ministry is at stake. My ministry and perhaps your cousin's life. Whatever abomination you have done, give me all of it now, for I dare not be taken unaware when I go before them down there. And there's your answer to number 4, so we'll take a pause and write that in.
There is nothing more. I swear it, Uncle.
Abigail, I have fought here 3 long years to bend these stiff-necked people to me, and now, just now, when some good respect is rising for me in the parish, you compromise my very character. I have given you a home, child. I have put clothes upon your back. Now give me upright answer. Your name in town, it is entirely white, is it not?
Why, I am sure it is, sir. There be no blush about my name.
Abigail, is there any other cause than you have told me for you being discharged from Goody Proctor's service? I have heard it said, and I tell you as I heard it, that she comes so rarely to the church this year, for she will not sit so close to something soiled. What signified that remark? On the top of page 1240.
She hates me, Uncle. She must, for I would not be her slave. It's a bitter woman, a lying, cold, sniveling woman, and I will not work for such a woman.
She may be, and yet it has troubled me that you are now 7 months out of their house, and in all this time no other family has ever called for your service.
They want slaves, not such as I. Let them send to Barbados for that. I will not black my face for any of them. Do you begrudge my bed, Uncle?
No. My name is good in the village. I will not have it said that my name is soiled. Goody Proctor is a gossiping liar. There's your answer to number 5. So stop and write that one in. Enter Mrs. Ann Putnam. She is a twisted soul of 45, a death-ridden woman, haunted by dreams. No, no, I cannot have anyone. Oh, why, Goody Ann, come in. It is a marvel. It is surely a stroke of hell upon you. No, Goody Putnam, it is... How high did she fly? How high? No, no, she never flew. Why, it's sure she did. Mr. Collins saw her going over Ingersoll's barn, and come down light as a bird, she says. Goody Putnam, she never... Enter Thomas Putnam, a well-to-do, means rich, hard-handed landowner near 50. Oh, good morning, Mr. Putnam.
It is a providence the thing is out now. It is a providence.
Providence means like it's a blessing.
What's out, sir? What's...
Mrs. Putnam goes over to the bed. She looks down at Betty, and Mr. Putnam says,
Why, her eyes is closed. Look you, Anne.
Why, that's strange. Ours is open. Your Ruth is sick? I'd not call it sick. The devil's touch is heavier than sick. It's death, you know. It's death driving into them, forked and hooved. Oh, pray not. Why? How does Ruth ail? She ails as she must. She never waked this morning, but her eyes open, and she walks. But she hears not, sees not, and cannot eat. Her soul is taken, surely.
There you can stop and write in the answer for number 6. We're at the bottom of page 1240 right now. Paris is struck with this, so another girl is sick as well. Or apparently, she's sick.
They say you've sent for Reverend Hale of Beverly?
A precaution only. He has much experience in all demonic arts. He is indeed. He found a witch in Beverly last year. Let you remember that. Now, Goody Ann, they only thought that we're a witch, and I am certain there be no element of witchcraft here.
No witchcraft? Now look you, Mr. Paris.
Thomas, I pray you, leap not to witchcraft. I know that you least of all, Thomas, would ever wish so disastrous a charge laid upon me. We cannot leap to witchcraft. They will howl me out of Salem for such corruption in my house.
A word about Thomas Putnam. He was a man with many grievances, at least one of which appears justified. Sometime before, his wife's brother-in-law, James Bailey, had been turned down as minister of Salem. Bailey had all the qualifications and 2/3 vote in the bargain, but a faction, a group of people, stopped his acceptance for reasons that are not clear. Thomas Putnam was the eldest son of the richest man in the village. He had fought the Indians at Narragansett and was deeply interested in parish affairs. He undoubtedly felt it poor payment that the village should so blatantly disregard his candidate for one of its more important offices, especially since he regarded himself as the intellectual superior of most of the people around him. I'm going to skip that middle paragraph and start in the second to last paragraph. Another reason. Another reason to believe him a deeply embittered man was his attempt to break his father's will, which left a disproportionate amount to a stepbrother. As with every other public cause in which he tried to force his way, he failed in this. So it is not surprising to find that so many accusations against people are in the handwriting of Thomas Putnam, or that his name is so often found as a witness corroborating the supernatural testimony, or that his daughter led the crying out at the most opportune junctures of the trials, especially when, but we'll speak of that when we come to it. There's your answer to number 7 about Thomas Putnam and his role in the town. All right, bottom of 1241.
Mr. Paris, I have taken your part in all contention here, and I would continue, but I cannot if you hold back in this. There are hurtful, vengeful spirits laying hands on these children.
But, Thomas, you cannot...
Anne, tell Mr. Paris what you have done.
Reverend Paris, I have laid 7 babies unbaptized in this earth. Believe me, sir, you never saw more hearty babies born, and yet each would wither in my arms the very night of their birth. I have spoke nothing, but my heart has clamored intimations, and now, this year, my Ruth, my only, I see her turning strange. A secret child she has become this year, and shrivels like a sucking mouth that we're putting on her life, too. And so I thought to send her to your Tituba. To Tituba? What made Tituba? Tituba knows how to speak to the dead, Mr. Paris. Goody Anne, it is a formidable sin to conjure up the dead. I take it on my soul, but who else may surely tell us what person murdered my babies? Woman, They were murdered, Mr. Paris. And mark this proof. Mark it! Last night my Ruth were ever so close to their little spirits. I know it, sir. For how else is she struck dumb now except some power of darkness would stop her mouth? It is a marvelous sign, Mr. Paris.
Don't you understand it, sir? There is a murdering witch among us, bound to keep herself in the dark. Let your enemies make of it what they will. You cannot blink it more.
Then you were conjuring spirits last night. Not I, sir. Tituba and Ruth. Oh, Abigail, what proper payment for my charity? Now I am undone.
You are not undone. Let you take hold here. Wait for no one to charge you. Declare it yourself. You have discovered witchcraft.
In my house? In my house, Thomas. They will topple me with this. They will make of it a...
Enter Mercy Lewis, the Putnam servant, a fat, sly, merciless girl of 18. So kind of ironic. Her name's Mercy, but she's merciless.
Your pardons. I only thought to see how Betty is.
Why aren't you home? Who's with Ruth?
Her grandma come. She's improved a little, I think. She gave a powerful sneeze before. Ah, there's a sign of life. I'd fear no more, Goody Putnam. It were a grand sneeze. Another like it will shake her wits together, I'm sure. Will you leave me now, Thomas? I would pray a while alone. Uncle, you've prayed since midnight. Why do you not go down and... No! No. I have no answer for that crowd. I'll wait until Mr. Hale arrives. If you will, Goody Anne.
Now look you, sir, let you strike out against the devil, and the village will bless you for it. Come down, speak to them, pray with them. They're thirsting for your word, mister. Surely you'll pray with them.
I'll lead them in a psalm. But let you say nothing of witchcraft yet. I will not discuss it. The cause is yet unknown. I haven't had enough contention since I came. I want no more. Mercy, you go home to Ruth. Do you hear? Aye, Mum. Mrs. Putnam goes out. If she starts for the window, cry for me at once. I will, Uncle. There is a terrible power in her arms today.
And he goes out with Putnam. So now it is just the girls in the room. No more adults. So now we can get to the bottom of what's going on.
How is Ruth sick? It's weirdish. I know not. She seems to walk like a dead one since last night.
She turns around. Abigail turns around and goes to Betty. And now,
Betty? I shake her a little bit. Betty? Now stop this, Betty. Sit up now.
But Betty doesn't sit. Doesn't stir. So Mercy comes over.
Have you tried beating her? I gave Ruth a good one and it waked her for a minute. Here, let me have her. No, he'll be coming up. Listen now. If they be questioning us, tell them we danced. I told him as much already. Aye, and what more? He knows Tituba conjured Ruth's sisters to come out of the grave. And what more? He saw you naked. Oh, Jesus!
Enter Mary Warren breathless. She is a 17, a subservient, naive, and lonely girl.
What do we do? The village is out. I just come from the farm. The whole country's talking witchcraft. They'll be calling us witches, Abby.
She means to tell. I know it. Top of page 1244.
Abby, we've got to tell. Witcheries are hanging there and hanging like they done in Boston 2 years ago. We must tell the truth, Abby. You'll only be whipped for dancing and the other things.
Oh, will be whipped.
I never done any of it, Abby. I only looked. Oh, you're a great one for looking, aren't you, Mary Warren? What a grand peeping courage you have.
Betty on the bed whimpers a little bit, and Abigail turns to her at once.
Betty?
She goes to Betty.
Now, Betty, dear, wake up now. It's Abigail. I'll beat you, Betty. My, you seem improving, she whimpers a little bit, so no. My, you seem improving. I talked to your papa, and I told him everything, so there's nothing to...
Betty darts off the bed, frightened of Abigail, and flattens herself against the wall.
I want my mama! What ails you, Betty? Your mama's dead and buried. I'll fly to mama. Let me fly!
She raises her arm as though to fly and streaks through the window and gets one leg out. And that's what's in the picture there on 1244.
I told him everything. He knows now. He knows everything we... You drank blood, Abby! You didn't tell him that! Betty, you will never say that again. You will never... You did! You did! You drank a charm to kill John Proctor's wife! You drank a charm to kill Goody Proctor! Psh! Shut it! Now shut it! Mama! Mama! Now look you, all of you. We danced, and Tituba conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this, let either of you breathe a word, or the edge of a word about the other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring a pointy reckoning that will shudder you. And you know I can do it. I saw Indians smash my dear parents' heads on the pillow next to mine, and I have seen some reddish work done at night, and I can make you wish you had never seen the sun go down. Now you, sit up and stop this. Stop right there and answer number 9. Very fearsome Abigail stuff. But Betty collapses in her hands and goes back to lying inert on the bed. What's got her? Abby, she's going to die. It's a sin to conjure, and we... I say, shut it, Mary Warren. Enter John Proctor. On seeing him, Mary Warren leaps in fright. Proctor was a farmer in his middle 30s. He need not have been a partisan, means on one side or the other, of any faction in the town, but there is evidence to suggest that he had a sharp and biting way with hypocrites. He was the kind of man, powerful of body, even-tempered, and not easily led, who cannot refuse support to partisans without drawing their deepest resentment. In Proctor's presence, a fool felt his foolishness instantly, and so someone like Proctor is always marked for calumny. Therefore, calumny means false accusation or slander. But as we shall see, the steady manner he displays does not spring from an untroubled soul. He is a sinner not only against the moral fashion of the time, but against his own vision of decent conduct. These people had no ritual for the washing away of sins. It is another trait we inherited from them, and it has helped to discipline us as well as to breed hypocrisy among us. Proctor, respected and even feared in Salem, has come to regard himself as a kind of fraud. But no hint of this has yet appeared on the surface, and as he enters from the crowded parlor below, it is a man in his prime, we see, with a quiet confidence and an unexpressed hidden force. Mary Warren, his servant, can barely speak for embarrassment and fear. Oh, I'm just going home, Mr. Proctor.
Be you foolish, Mary Warren? Be you deaf? I forbid you leave the house, did I not? Why shall I pay you? I am looking for you more often than my cows.
I only come to see the great doings in the world.
I'll show you a great doing on your arse one of these days. Now get you home. My wife is waiting with your work.
Trying to retain a shred of dignity, she slinks slowly out. Mercy is in awe and also titillated by Proctor. I'm used to playing Proctor, just him.
I best be off. I have my Ruth to watch. Good morning, Mr. Proctor.
Mercy sidles out. Since Proctor's entrance, Abigail has stood as though on tiptoe, absorbing his presence wide-eyed. He glances at her and then goes to Betty on the bed.
Gad, I'd almost forgot how strong you are, John Proctor.
What's this mischief here?
Oh, she's only gone silly somehow.
The road past my house is a pilgrimage to Salem all morning. The town's mumbling witchcraft.
Oh, posh.
Winningly, she comes a little closer with a confidential, wicked air.
We were dancing in the woods last night, and my uncle leaped in on us. She took fright is all.
Ah, you're wicked yet, aren't you? A trill of expectant laughter escapes her, like, and she dares come closer, feverishly looking into his eyes, at the top of 1246 now. You'll be clapped in the stocks before you're 20. Stocks are like when they put you in Puritan jail, like they put you like that and make your head hang over and people throw cabbage at you and stuff like that. Puritan jail. He takes a step to go, but she springs into his path.
Give me a word, John.
A soft word. Her concentrated desire destroys his smile. No, Abby. That's done with.
Oh, you come 5 miles to see a silly girl fly? I know you better. I come to see what mischief your uncle's brewing now. Put it out of mind, Abby. I am waiting for you every night.
Abby, I never give you hope to wait for me.
I have something better than hope, I think.
Abby, you'll put it out of mind. I'll not be coming for you more.
You're surely sporting with me.
Oh, you know me better.
I know how you clutched my back behind your house and sweated like a stallion whenever I come near. Or did I dream that? It's she that put me out. You cannot pretend it were you. I saw your face when she put me out, and you loved me then, and you do now. Abby, that's a wild thing to say. A wild thing may say wild things, but not so wild, I think. I have seen you since she put me out. I have seen you nights.
I have hardly stepped off my farm this 7 months.
I have a sense for heat, John, and yours has drawn me to my window, and I have seen you looking up, burning in your loneliness. Do you tell me you never looked up at my window?
I may have looked up.
And you must. You are no wintry man. I know you, John. I know you. I cannot sleep for dreaming. I cannot dream, but I wake and walk about the house as though I'd find you coming through some door.
She clutches him desperately. He gently presses her from him with great sympathy, but firmly, and says, "Child."
How do you call me child?
Abby, I may think of you softly from time to time, but I will cut off my hand before I reach for you again. Wipe it out of mind. We never touched, Abby.
Aye, but we did.
Aye, but we did not.
Oh, I marvel how such a strong man may let such a sickly wife be. You'll speak nothing of Elizabeth. She is blackening my name in the village. She is telling lies about me. She is a cold, sniveling woman, and you bend to her. Let her turn you like a... Do you look for a whipping?
A psalm is heard being sung below.
I look for John Proctor, that took me from my sleep and put knowledge in my heart. I never knew what pretense Salem was. I never knew how the lying lessons I was taught by all these Christian women and their covenanted men. And now you bid me tear the light out of my eyes? I will not. I cannot. You loved me, John Proctor, and whatever sin it is, you love me yet. Oh, John, pity me, pity me.
The words "going up to Jesus." Oh, that's sorry, number 10. Stop and answer number 10 right there. Now the words "going up to Jesus" are heard in the psalm, and Betty claps her ears suddenly and whines loudly.
Betty?
She hurries to Betty, who is now sitting up and screaming. Proctor goes to Betty as Abigail is trying to pull her hands down. They're both calling, "Betty! What's she doing? Girl, what ails you? Stop that wailing!" The singing has stopped in the midst of this, all the screaming. And now Paris rushes in.
What happened? What are you doing to her? Betty!
He rushes to the bed, crying, "Betty! Betty!" Mrs. Putnam enters, feverish with curiosity, and with her Putnam and Mercy Lewis. Paris at the bed keeps lightly slapping Betty's face while she moans and tries to get up.
She heard you singing, and suddenly she's up and screaming. The psalm! The psalm! She cannot bear to hear the Lord's name. No, God forbid. Betty, run to the doctor. Tell him what's happened here.
Mercy rushes out.
Mark it for a sign! Mark it!
Rebecca Nurse, 72, enters. She is white-haired, leaning upon her walking stick.
That is a notorious sign of witchcraft afoot, Goody Nurse. A prodigious sign.
My mother told me that when they cannot bear to hear the name of Rebecca. Rebecca, go to her. We're lost. She suddenly cannot bear to hear the Lord's.
Giles Corey, 83, enters. He is knotted with muscle, canny, inquisitive, and still powerful.
There is hard sickness here, Giles Corey, so please to keep the quiet. I've not said a word. No one here can testify I've said a word. Is she going to fly again? I hear she flies.
Man, be quiet now.
Everything is quiet. Rebecca walks across the room to the bed. Gentleness exudes, means like comes off of her. Betty is quietly whimpering, eyes shut. Rebecca simply stands over the child, who gradually quiets. And there's the first part of number 11. So we can stop right there. And while they are so absorbed, we may put in a word for Rebecca. Rebecca was the wife of Francis Nurse, who, from all accounts, was one of those men for whom both sides of the argument had to have respect. He was called upon to arbitrate disputes as though he were an unofficial judge, and Rebecca also enjoyed the high opinion most people had for him. By the time of the delusion, they had 300 acres, and their children were settled in separate homesteads within the same estate. However, Francis had originally rented the land, and one theory has it that, as he gradually paid for it and raised his social status, there were those who resented his rise. I'm going to skip now, all of it actually. Skip the rest of that whole thing about Rebecca. You got the deal. You got the idea about Rebecca and Francis Nurse. They're well respected. They're older people. People like them. All right. So 1248, Mrs. Putnam Line.
What have you done?
Rebecca, in thought, now leaves the bedside and sits.
What do you make of it, Rebecca?
Goody Nurse, will you go to my Ruth and see if you can wake her?
I think she'll wake in time. Pray calm yourselves. I have 11 children, and I am 26 times a grandma, and I have seen them all through their silly seasons, and when it come on them, they will run the devil bow-legged, keeping up with their mischief. I think she'll wake up when she tires of it. A child's spirit is like a child. You can never catch it by running after it. You must stand still, and, for love, it will soon itself come back.
Aye, that's the truth of it, Rebecca.
This is no silly season, Rebecca. My Ruth is bewildered, Rebecca. She cannot eat. Perhaps she is not hungered yet. I hope you are not decided to go in search of loose spirits, Mr. Paris. I've heard promise of that outside. A wide opinion's running in the parish that the devil may be among us, and I would satisfy them that they are wrong.
Then let you come out and call them wrong. Did you consult the wardens before you called this minister to look for devils?
He is not coming to look for devils.
Then what's he coming for? There be children dying in the village, mister. I see none dying. This society will not be a bag to swing up at your head, Mr. Putnam. Did you call a meeting before you... I am sick of meetings. Cannot the man turn his head without he have a meeting? He may turn his head, but not to hell.
Pray, John, be calm. Mr. Paris, I think you'd best send Reverend Hale back as soon as he come. This will set us all again to arguing in the society, and we thought to have some peace this year. I think we ought to rely on the doctor now and good prayer.
So there is 11.2, the second half of number 11. So we'll stop at that one.
Rebecca, the doctor's baffled. If so he is, then let us go to God for the cause of it. There is prodigious,
Means very great.
prodigious danger in the seeking of loose spirits. I fear it. I fear it. Let us rather blame ourselves and...
How may we blame ourselves? I am one of 9 sons. The Putnam seed have peopled this province, and yet I have but 1 child left out of 8, and now she shrivels.
I cannot fathom that. But I must! You think it's God's work you should never lose a child, nor grandchild either, and I bury all but 1? There are wheels within wheels in this village, and fires within fires.
When Reverend Hale comes, you will proceed to look for signs of witchcraft here. You cannot command Mr. Paris. We vote by name in this society, not by acreage.
It doesn't matter how much land you have. You get 1 vote. Okay, 1 person, 1 vote.
I had never heard you worried so on this society, Mr. Proctor. I do not think I saw you at Sabbath meeting at church since the snow flew.
I have trouble enough without I come 5 miles to hear him preach only hellfire and bloody damnation. Take it to heart, Mr. Paris. There are many others who stay away from church these days because you hardly ever mention God anymore.
Why, that's a drastic charge.
It's somewhat true. There are many that quail to bring their children. I do not preach for children, Rebecca. It is not the children who are unmindful of their obligations toward this ministry. Are there really those unmindful? I should say the better half of Salem Village.
And more than that.
Where is my wood? My contract provides I be supplied with all my firewood. I am waiting since November for a stick, and even in November I had to show my frostbitten hands like some London beggar. You are allowed £6 a year to buy your wood, Mr. Paris. I regard that £6 as part of my salary. I am paid little enough without I spend £6 on firewood.
No, 60 plus 6 for firewood.
The salary is £66, Mr. Proctor. I am not some preaching farmer with a book under my arm. I am a graduate of Harvard College. Aye, and well instructed in arithmetic. Mr. Corey, you will look far for a man of my kind at £60 a year. I am not used to this poverty. I left a thrifty business in the Barbados to serve the Lord. I do not fathom it. Why am I persecuted here? I cannot offer one proposition, but there be a howling riot of argument. I have often wondered if the devil be in it somewhere. I cannot understand you people otherwise.
Mr. Paris, you are the first minister that ever did demand the deed to this house.
Man, don't a minister deserve a house to live in?
To live in, yes. But to ask ownership is like you shall own the meeting house itself. The last meeting I were at, you spoke so long on deeds and mortgages, I thought I were at an auction.
I want a mark of confidence, that is all. I am your third preacher in 7 years. I do not wish to be put out like the cat whenever some majority feels the whim. You people seem not to comprehend that a minister is the Lord's man in the parish. A minister is not to be so lightly crossed and contradicted.
Aye.
There is either obedience or the church will burn like hell is burning.
Can you not speak 1 minute without we land in hell again? I am sick of hell.
It is not for you to say what is good for you to hear.
I may speak my heart, I think.
What are we, Quakers? We are not Quakers here yet, Mr. Proctor, and you may tell that to your followers.
That's a jab. Like Quakers, as it says on the bottom of page 1251, they're a Christian religious sect that was founded in the mid-17th century and has no formal creed, rites, or priesthood. They did not have a rigid code of conduct. They were very loosey-goosey. Quakers are not strict. And so he's saying, hey, we're not that. Okay, we're Puritans. We are serious about this stuff.
So you may tell that to your followers.
My followers?
There is a party in this church. I am not blind. There is a faction and a party.
Against you? Against him and all authority.
Why? Then I must find it and join it. There is shock among the others. Here's a good place to stop and write in the answer to number 12.
He does not mean that.
He confessed it now.
I mean it solemnly, Rebecca. I like not the smell of this authority.
No, you cannot break charity with your minister. You are another kind, John. Clasp his hand and make your peace.
I have a crop to sow and lumber to drag home. What say you, Giles? Let's find the party. He says there's a party.
I've changed my opinion of this man, John. Mr. Paris, I beg your pardon. I never thought you had so much iron in you.
Why, thank you, Giles.
It suggests to the mind what the trouble be among us all these years. All of you, think on it. Wherefore,
which means why,
wherefore is everybody suing everybody else? Think on it now. It's a deep thing and dark as a pit. I have been 6 times in court this year.
Is it the devil's fault that a man cannot say you good morning without you clap him for defamation? You're old, Giles, and you're not hearing so well as you did.
John Proctor, I have only last month collected £4 damages for you publicly saying I burned the roof off your house. And I
never said no such thing. But I've paid you for it, so I hope I can call you deaf without charge. Now come along, Giles, and help me drag my lumber home.
A moment, Mr. Proctor. What lumber is that you're dragging, if I may ask you?
My lumber, from out my forest by the riverside.
Why, we are surely gone wild this year. What anarchy is this? That tract is in my bounds. It's in my bounds, Mr. Proctor.
In your bounds? I bought that tract from Goody Nurse's husband 5 months ago.
He had no right to sell it. It stands clear in my grandfather's will that all the land between the river and...
Your grandfather had a habit of willing land that never belonged to him, if I may say it plain.
That's God's truth. He nearly wheeled away my north pasture, but he knew I'd break his fingers before he'd set his name to it. Let's get your lumber home, John. I feel a sudden will to work coming on.
You put one load oak of You load one oak of mine, and you'll fight to drag it home.
Aye, and we'll win too, Putnam. This fool and I. Come on.
He turns to Proctor, and they start out.
I'll have my men on you, Corey. I'll clap a writ on you.
That is a good time to stop and answer number 13. on the study guide. Enter Reverend John Hale of Beverly. Mr. Hale is nearing 40, a tight-skinned, eager-eyed intellectual. This is a beloved errand for him. On being called here to ascertain witchcraft, he felt the pride of the specialist whose unique knowledge has at last been publicly called for. Like almost all men of learning, he spent a good deal of time pondering the invisible world, especially since he had himself encountered a witch in his parish not long before. That woman, however, turned into a mere pest under his searching scrutiny, and the child she had allegedly been afflicting recovered her normal behavior after Hale had given her his kindness and a few days of rest in his own house. However, that experience never raised a doubt in his mind as to the reality of the underworld or the existence of Lucifer's many-faced lieutenants. And his belief is not to his discredit. Better minds than Hale's were, and still are, convinced that there is a society of spirits beyond our ken, beyond our understanding. So we can stop and answer the first part of number 14 right there about this guy's expertise. What does he know all about that may or may not exist depending on your beliefs? I don't believe it. After we answer number 14, skip a long way. Like, go to page 1254. Let's turn the page to 1254. In that first paragraph on 1254, I'm going to pick up at the last sentence in the first paragraph on 1254, so near the top. It's the sentence begins, "the devil," and it's capitalized right there. It's like the third line from the bottom of that paragraph. The devil, as Reverend Hale said, is a wily one, and until an hour before he fell, even God thought him beautiful in heaven. And there's that whole story that I told you before about how did the devil become the devil. This is what their philosophy is. Hey, you could do really well your whole life, and then all of a sudden you make a compact with the devil, and you're damned. You're going to hell. All right, so the second paragraph on 1254. I'm about to skip again. The analogy, however, seems to falter when one considers that, while there were no witches then, there are communists and capitalists now, and each camp there is certain proof that spies of each side are at work undermining the other. So he's again making the point. He's writing this during the Cold War and during these hearings going on in the Red Scare, and communists are the witches and whatever. So he's making that point very open right here. We'll go more into that later. I'm going to skip again to page 1255. So go to the next page. You don't have to turn a page. It's on the next page. And due to the second paragraph on 1255, it's the last paragraph of this big long interlude about Reverend Hale. Coming into Salem now, Reverend Hale conceives of himself as much as a young doctor on his first call. His painfully acquired armory of symptoms, catchwords, and diagnostic procedures are now to be put to use at last. The road from Beverly is unusually busy this morning, and he has passed 100 rumors that make him smile at the ignorance of the yeomanry, the average person, in this most precise science. Like, he knows about witches. These people are just saying witches. They don't know anything about it. He feels himself allied with the best minds of Europe, kings, philosophers, scientists, and ecclesiasts of all churches. His goal is light, goodness, and its preservation, and he knows the exaltation of the blessed, whose intelligence, sharpened by minute, means careful, examinations of enormous tracts of he's carefully read really long books, is finally called upon to face what may be a bloody fight with the fiend, the devil himself. First part of that paragraph is the answer to the second part of number 14. So stop and write that in right now. He appears loaded down with half a dozen heavy books. Pray you, someone take these. Oh, Mr. Hale. Oh, it's good to see you again. My, they're heavy. They must be. They are weighted with authority. Well, you do come prepared. We shall need hard study if it comes to tracking down the old boy, which is yet another name for the devil. You cannot be Rebecca Nurse. I am, sir. Do you know me? It's strange how I knew you, but I suppose you look such as a good soul should. We have all heard of your great charities in Beverly. Do you know this gentleman, Mr. Thomas Putnam, and his good wife, Anne? Putnam! I had not expected such distinguished company, sir.
Oh, it does seem to help us today, Mr. Hale. We look to you to come to our house and save our child.
Your child ails too? Her soul seems flown away. She sleeps and yet she walks.
She cannot eat.
Cannot eat. Do you men have afflicted children? No, these are farmers. John Proctor, he don't believe in witches.
I never spoke on witches one way or the other. Will you come, Giles?
No, John, I think not. I have some few queer questions of my own to ask this fellow.
I've heard you to be a sensible man, Mr. Hale. I hope you'll leave some of it in Salem.
Proctor leaves, and Hale stands embarrassed for an instant about the implication that Proctor's making that everyone here is not sensible. They're all crazy people.
Will you look at my daughter, sir? She has tried to leap out the window. We discovered her this morning on the high road, waving her arms as though she was trying to fly. Tries to fly.
She cannot bear to hear the Lord's name, Mr. Hale. That's a sure sign of witchcraft afloat.
No. Now, let me instruct you. We cannot look to superstition in this. The devil is precise. The marks of his presence are as definite as stone, and I must tell you all that I shall not proceed unless you are prepared to believe me if I should find no bruise of hell upon her. It is agreed, sir. It is agreed. We will abide by your judgment.
Good then.
Now, sir, what were your first warning of this strangeness? Why, sir, I discovered her, and my niece, and 10 or 12 of the other girls, dancing in the forest last night.
You permit dancing?
No, it was secret. Mr. Paris's slave has knowledge of conjuring, sir. We cannot be sure of that, Goody Ann. I know it, sir. I sent my child. She should learn from Tituba, who murdered her sisters. Goody Ann, you sent a child to conjure up the dead. Let God blame me, not you. Not you, Rebecca. I'll not have you judging me any more. Is it natural work to lose 7 children before they live a day? Shh.
Rebecca, with great pain, turns her face away. There's no one who will really explain why this woman's 7 children died, except that maybe, hey, your womb is cursed and you shouldn't be having children if they keep dying. There's a pause.
7 dead in childbirth. Her
voice breaks. She looks up at him. Silence. Hale is impressed. Paris looks to him, so he goes over to his books. He opens one, turns some pages, and then reads. All of them are waiting on him, avidly. He's like, intently.
What book is that? What's there, sir? Here is all the invisible world, caught, defined, and calculated. In these books, the devil stands stripped of all his brute disguises. Here are all your familiar spirits, your incubi and succubi, your witches that go by land, by air, and by sea, your wizards of the night and of the day. Have no fear now. We shall find him out if he has come among us, and I mean to crush him utterly if he has shown his face.
He starts for the bed.
Will it hurt the child, sir? I cannot tell. If she is truly in the devil's grip, we may have to rip and tear to get her free. I think I'll go, then. I am too old for this. Why, Rebecca, we may open up the boil of all our troubles today. Let us hope for that. I go to God for you, sir. I hope you not mean that we go to Satan here. I wish I knew.
And she goes out, and they all feel kind of resentful of her note of moral superiority. Like she's better than them.
Come, Mr. Hale, let's get on. Sit you here.
Mr. Hale, I have always wanted to ask a learned man, what signifies the reading of strange books?
What books?
I cannot tell. She hides them.
Who does this?
Martha, my wife. I have waked at night many a time and found her in a corner reading of a book. Now what do you make of that?
Why, that's not necessarily...
It discomfits me. Last night, mark this. I tried and could not say my prayers. And then she closed her book and walks out of the house, and suddenly, mark this, I could pray again.
Old Giles must be spoken for
if only because his fate was to be so remarkable and so different from that of all the others. He was in his early 80s at this time and was the most comical hero in the history. No man has ever been blamed for so much. If a cow was missed, the first thought was to look for her around Corey's house. A fire blazing up at night brought suspicion of arson to his door. He didn't give a hoot for public opinion, and only in his last years, after he had married Martha, did he bother very much with the church. That she stopped his prayer is very probable, but he forgot to say that he'd only recently learned any prayers, and it didn't take much to make him stumble over them. He was a crank and a nuisance, but withal a deeply innocent and brave man. In court once, he was asked if it were true that he had been frightened by the strange behavior of a hog, and had then said he knew it to be the devil in an animal shape. "What frighted you?" he was asked. He forgot everything but the word frighted, and instantly replied, "I do not know that I ever spoke that word in my life." "Ah, stoppage of prayer. It is strange. I'll speak further on that with you. I'm not saying she's touched the devil now, but I'd admire to know what books she reads and why she reads them. She'll not answer me, you see." So there is the answer to number 15 on your study guide, now at the top of page 1258. I will discuss it. Now, all of you, mark me. If the devil is in her, you will witness some frightful wonders about this room. So please to keep your wits about you. Mr. Putnam, stand close in case she flies. Now, Betty, dear, will you sit up? She's just hanging limp in my grasp. Can you hear me? I am John Hale, minister of Beverly. I have come to help you, dear. Do you remember my 2 little girls in Beverly? She doesn't stir. How can it be the devil? Why would he choose my house to strike? We have all manner of licentious people in the village. Licentious means lacking moral restraint. Why would he come after me? I'm a good guy. I'm the minister. We have all these terrible people in the village. Why doesn't he go after them? What victory would the devil have to win a soul already dead? Already bad, sorry. It is the best the devil wants. And who is better than the minister? That's deep, Mr. Paris. Deep, deep. Betty, answer Mr. Hale. Betty! Does someone afflict you, child? It need not be a woman, mind you, or a man. Perhaps some bird, invisible to others, comes to you. Perhaps a pig, a mouse, or any beast at all. Is there some figure that bids you fly? But she just remains limp, so I lay her back on the pillow. And now, like in every good exorcism movie, I get to speak Latin at her. In nomine Domini Sabaoth su filice ite ad infernos! Which means, in the name of the Lord of hosts and his son, get thee to the lower world. So I'm talking to the whatever's inside her, trying to tell it to go back to hell. Abigail, what sort of dancing were you doing with her in the forest? Why, common dancing is all. I think I ought to say that I saw a kettle in the grass where they were dancing. That were only soup. What sort of soup were in this kettle, Abigail? Why, it were beans and lentils, I think, and... Mr. Paris, you did not notice, did you, any living thing in the kettle? A mouse, perhaps, a spider, a frog? I do believe there was some movement in the soup. That jumped in. We never put it in. What jumped in? Why, a very little frog jumped. A frog, Abby! Abigail, it may be that your cousin is dying. Did you call the devil last night? I never called him. Tituba! Tituba! She called the devil? I should like to speak with Tituba. Goody Ann, will you bring her up? How did she call him? I know not. She spoke Barbados. Did you feel any strangeness when she called him? A sudden cold wind, perhaps, a trembling below the ground? I didn't see no devil. Betty, wake up! Betty! Betty! You cannot evade me, Abigail. Did your cousin drink any of the brew in that kettle? She never drank it. Did you drink it? No, sir. Did Tituba ask you to drink it? She tried, but I refused.
Why are you concealing? Have you sold yourself to Lucifer?
I never sold myself. I'm a good girl. I'm a proper girl.
Mrs. Putnam enters with Tituba, and instantly Abigail points at Tituba.
She made me do it. She made Betty do it.
Tituba, shocked and angry.
Abby! She makes me drink blood. Blood? My baby's blood? No, no, chicken blood. I give she chicken blood.
Woman, have you enlisted these children for the devil?
No, no, sir. I don't truck with no devil.
Why can she not wake? Are you silencing this child?
I love me, Betty.
You have sent your spirit out upon this child, have you not? Are you gathering souls for the devil?
She sends her spirit on me in church. She makes me laugh at prayer.
She have often laughed at prayer.
She comes to me every night to go and drink blood.
You beg me to conjure.
She beg me to make charm. Don't lie. She comes to me while I sleep. She's always making me dream corruptions.
Why you say that, Abby?
Sometimes I wake and find myself standing in the open doorway and not a stitch on my body. I always hear her laughing in my sleep. I hear her singing her Barbados songs and tempting me with...
So let's stop and answer number 16, especially since my voice is about to give out. It was hard work doing all these parts. Middle of page 1260.
Mr. Reverend, I never...
Tituba, I want you to wake this child.
I have no power over this child, sir.
You most certainly do, and you will free her from it now. When did you compact with the devil?
I didn't compact with no devil.
You will confess yourself, or I will take you out and whip you to your death, Tituba. This woman must be hanged. She must be taken out and hanged.
No, no, don't hang Tituba. I tell him I don't desire to work for him, sir.
So here is number 17, real quick. About Tituba and what works on her in terms of the interrogation.
The devil? Then you saw him. Now, Tituba, I know that when we bind ourselves to hell, it is very hard to break with it. We are going to help you tear yourself free.
Mr. Reverend, I do believe somebody else bewitching these children.
Who?
I don't know, sir, but the devil got him numerous witches.
Does he?
Tituba, look into my eyes. Come, look into me. You would be a good Christian woman, would you not, Tituba? Aye, sir, a good Christian woman.
And you love these little children?
Oh, yes, sir. I don't desire to hurt little children.
And you love God, Tituba?
I love God with all my being.
Now in God's holy name,
bless him. Bless him.
And to his glory,
eternal glory. Bless him. Bless God.
Open yourself, Tituba. Open yourself and let God's holy light shine on you.
Oh, bless the Lord.
When the devil comes to you, does he ever come with another person? Perhaps another person in the village. Someone you know. Who came with him?
Sarah Good? Did you ever see Sarah Good with him? Or Osborne?
Was it a man or woman to come with him?
Man or woman? Was woman.
There's the first part of number 18, so type it in right now.
What woman? A woman, you said. What woman?
It was black dark and I...
You could see him. Why could you not see her?
Well, they was always talking, and they was always running around and carrying on.
You mean out of Salem? Salem witches?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Now Hale takes her hand. She is surprised.
Tituba, you must have no fear to tell us who they are. Do you understand? We will protect you. The devil can never overcome a minister. You know that, do you not?
Aye, sir. Oh, I do.
You have confessed yourself to witchcraft, and that speaks a wish to come to heaven's side. And we will bless you, Tituba.
Oh, God bless you, Mr. Hale. You are God's instrument, put in our hands to discover the devil's agent among us. You are selected, Tituba. You are chosen to help us cleanse our village. So speak utterly, Tituba. Turn your back on him and face God. Face God, Tituba, and God will protect you. Oh, God, protect Tituba. Who came to you with the devil? 2? 3? 4? How many? There was 4. There was 4.
So there is your answer, second part of number 18. So stop, type that in.
Who? Their names! Their names! Oh, how many times he bid me kill you, Mr. Paris! Kill me? He say Mr. Paris must be killed. Mr. Paris no goodly man. Mr. Paris mean man and no gentleman. And he bid me rise out of my bed and cut your throat. But I tell him, no, I don't hate that man. I don't want kill that man. But he say, you work for me, Tituba, and I make you free. I give you pretty dress to wear and put you way high up in the air, and you go fly back to Barbados. And I say, you lie, devil, you lie. And then he come one stormy night to me, and he say, look, I have white people belong to me. And I look, and there was Goody Good. Sarah Good? Aye, sir. And Goody Osborne. I knew it. Goody Osborne were midwife to me 3 times. I begged you, Thomas, did I not? I begged him not to call Osborne because I feared her. My baby's always shriveled in her hands. Take courage. You must give us all their names. How can you bear to see this child suffering? Look at her, Tituba. Look at her God-given innocence. Her soul is so tender. We must protect her, Tituba. The devil is out and preying on her like a beast upon the flesh of the pure lamb. God will bless you for your help.
Abigail rises, staring as though inspired, and cries out,
I want to open myself.
They turn to her, startled. She is enraptured, as though in a pearly light.
I want the light of God. I want the sweet love of Jesus. I danced for the devil. I saw him. I wrote in his book. I go back to Jesus. I kiss his hand. I saw Sarah Good with the devil. I saw Goody Osborne with the devil. I saw Bridget Bishop with the devil.
As she is speaking, Betty is rising from the bed, a fever in her eyes, and picks up the chant. By the way, I think we had to go back and answer number 19 back in the middle of the page, but I didn't remember to stop. Stop now and do that. Now they're both picking up. Betty's waking up.
I saw George Jacobs with the devil. I saw Goody Howe with the devil. She speaks. She speaks. Glory to God. It is broken. They are free. I saw Martha Bellows with the devil. I saw Goody Sibber with the devil.
The marshal! I'll call the marshal!
Paris is shouting a prayer of thanksgiving.
I saw Alice Barrow with the devil.
The curtain begins to fall.
Let the marshal bring irons!
I saw Goody Hawkins with the devil. I saw Goody Bibber with the devil. I saw Goody Booth with the devil.
On their ecstatic cries, the curtain falls. That was Crucible Act I. See you next time.